Hi, I'm Donna Davis. I'm here with attorney Justin O'Dell of O'Dell, O'Neill, Hungerford, and Blanchard to talk about a few Georgia legal topics and what's going on at the firm. So tell us a little bit about what's going on now with
Sure.
your firm.
Good morning. So our firm prides ourselves and our firm motto is serving our clients and our community. So we've got a couple exciting sponsorships going on at the moment. One, we're involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They are having a fundraiser coming up at the first part of June. A local attorney, Molly Gillis, is in the running. They have a Man of the Year and a Woman of the Year, and they're fundraising on their respective pages to gain funds to bolster their candidacy to be named Man of the Year, Woman of the Year by the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So we are supporting that initiative. I lost an uncle to leukemia and lymphoma, so it's near and dear to my heart personally, but we are engaged in that event and sponsoring that. The second one I'm very excited about. It's a brand new event. There's a local school here in Cobb County called Grace Point. And my family, my immediate family, our children are blessed in that we don't have children that struggle with specialized learning, dyslexia, dysgraphia, things of that nature. But there are a lot of children who do. And Grace Point is actually a school that specializes in helping those learners learn to learn. There's a saying that from first to third grade, you have to learn to read, and then by third grade, you have to read to learn. And if you don't have it by third grade, you're going to get way behind. And so the school takes children and it pulls them into a specialized instruction program. We used to view those children as disabled, learning disabled. And what they've learned is they just learn differently.
Right.
And so what the school does is understands how they learn, teaches them tricks and skills to use the way their mind works, that then they can go back into the regular school environment, apply those tricks, and be right there with their peers.
And when you think about so much productivity that you get from somebody and how much you can enrich their life, what a great cause.
Yeah, and so they're doing their first ever 5K fun run. It's a fundraiser for Grace Point, and we've signed on as one of their signature sponsors, so we're happy to be engaged in that.
I know that your firm is so community-oriented, and you've served on with local organizations, the Cobb Chamber, and all those kind of things. I just think that's great that you guys do that.
Yeah, we try to make sure we're giving back. Obviously, the community is supporting us by utilizing our firm for services, and we understand that, and we think it's a responsibility that we have to put that right back into the community. So we're going to continue to try to do it.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of divorce and family law. If anybody has questions on those topics, you can enter your questions. While Justin can't give legal advice, he can certainly tell you a little bit about Georgia law and some scenarios. But you wanted to talk about kind of what can people expect when they go in and they talk on a first-time consultation about divorce?
Sure. For the first one of these, I kind of thought that'd be a good place to start, since that's usually where I start when people come in. Typically what will happen is somebody will reach out. They've been referred to our office, and they'll reach out and they'll make an appointment for a consultation. When we sit down for a consultation, I find people are often in very different places. Some people know it's time, we're moving forward with a divorce. Other people are exploring, understanding what the process looks like, and it's okay. I think a lot of times people are very nervous or apprehensive to be honest about where they are in the process. And it makes it difficult, obviously, on my part if I don't have all that information, because I need to know kind of where to have the conversation. Are you having the conversation of, all right, it's time to start, and here's what that looks like? Or are we having a conversation of, well, what would happen if we did go down that road? And it requires, I think, people to kind of be prepared when they come in to answer that question and understand, what they're looking for in advice from me. The other thing we get in a consultation process that, as long as I've been doing this, is still, I guess, somewhat puzzling to me, but I guess understandable. People are bashful. And that is, you have to be honest with me. And a lot of people come in, and I hear all the time, well, I just don't know how to say this. I'm going to be embarrassed. This is so problematic or private or whatever. And I have to tell them, You're not going to shock me.
I know. After how long of doing this?
After 20 years, myself, my law partner, who's been at this for more than a decade, our other two partners who are approaching a decade doing this, you're not going to shock us.
Right.
And what we need more than anything is the full gambit, the full range of information that we have so that I can give people the best possible advice. People are oftentimes reluctant, I think, to share that with us, to tell us really what's going on, if there is any misconduct, if there are any issues. They're hesitant to be honest about that. And if they can't be honest about that, then it makes it very hard for us to give them the advice that we need and steer them in the direction we may need to take them. The other thing that I think people want in that consultation process that's the hardest thing to hear, everybody wants the answer to the question, well, how is all this going to turn out? And I understand why they want that answer. They want me to tell them where it's going to end up. And I think when you come in for that initial consultation, everybody has to understand from an expectation standpoint, you're not going to get that. And anybody who tries to promise you an outcome is really just selling you something they can't deliver.
Right.
First and foremost, in that initial consultation, we don't have all the information. We've never most likely met the other side. We've never met the spouse. We've never met the lawyer, or we probably have worked with the lawyer they worked with, but we don't know who they're going to choose yet. And your spouse's lawyer matters. There's all kinds of different ones out there, and we don't know who they're going to select. Are they going to select somebody who's going to be difficult, expensive, run this thing up, or are they going to select somebody with whom we have more of a working relationship? We don't have all that information, and so I know people just desperately want me to tell them, don't worry, here's where it's going to end up. And that's just very hard advice to give right off the bat. What you should expect, or what you should want the lawyer to explain to you, and what I try to focus on is the process. So if we are going to go down the road, if we are going to go traveling down this road together, here's the process that's going to unfold. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's what that's going to look like. Here's what I'm going to be responsible for along that process. Here's what you, the client, are going to be responsible for along that process. Here's a timeline that I think is manageable for that process. And here's sort of what you can expect at each phase. And if we go successfully, this is what that'll look like. And when I try to put it in a process-oriented approach to people, I think that gives them some peace.
Well, people are so emotional when they go through a divorce anyway. There's so much feeling of loss until I'm sure that trying to think it all through is just too much. And to be able to think in small terms is probably helpful.
It does. I have a saying that I tell a lot of my clients, and that is, I can only get you divorced, or I can only handle the family law matter we need to handle it one day at a time. We have to worry about tomorrow, today. And if we spend our time bogged down in worrying about a year from now, then you're going to have a paralysis by analysis when we're trying to do something today. The emotional side of it is something that becomes difficult. A lot of times what people want from me is they view it as, I'm going to come in as a white knight, like paladin for them. And there is a little bit of that role. But what I try to remind people is, it's my job to be your attorney. It's not my job to become your cheerleader, your friend, your priest, your counselor. We can find you those people. But
Yeah.
what you don't need is two of us who are emotionally wrapped up in your case. Because if the attorney becomes emotional about your case, if I get wrapped up in your case, if I start hard charging in there because I'm emotionally invested in it, then I lose perspective. And
Yes.
you don't want me to lose perspective. Mm-hmm. So I tell the client, you get to be as emotional as you want. I will remain static. And I can continue to give you dispassionate, logical advice and help you pull the emotion out and make good, rational decisions.
Yeah, because I've talked to some of your some of your clients, and they say their own emotion can be their worst enemy in it because sometimes you're hurt, you want to hurt back, and so you're willing to do things that might end up being worse for you in doing so.
Absolutely, and I see that so much, and I try to tell them what you're looking for, the process isn't going to deliver. If you want vengeance, if you want publicity, if you want some sort of spectacle out of this, if you're taking your anger and you want it projected and you want to hurt the other person, the process isn't going to deliver that.
Right.
At the end of the day, we can have the most successful trial ever, and I'll promise you the vengeance isn't going to be achieved. You're not going to be vindicated in the way that you think you are. I try to use this thing to help people understand where they need to be at the end of the day and where I think I can help them. And I tell them, it doesn't matter whether we go all the way to trial, it doesn't matter whether we settle your case. Both outcomes are there are people who just don't see eye to eye, they have an honest disagreement, and we have to go try it, but they don't hate each other.
Right.
I tell them, if they have children, this is particularly helpful, I tell them, listen, your son or daughter is going to get married one day. And we have all been to the weddings, right? We've been to the wedding where you've got divorced parents of let's say the bride, for example, right? And here they are at their daughter's wedding, and they don't sit together. And there's a fight over who's walking who down the aisle. Is it the ex-wife's mother's new husband? Is it the father? There's a fight about that. Does the dad's new wife get to be, part of the breakfast brunch thing?
All of that.
All of that, right? And they don't even sit together. And I said, that's option one. Option two, and we've been to these weddings, right, where you don't even know they're divorced.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the new spouses kind of melt away. Maybe they sit together. Maybe they, set it aside. And I tell people, we can fight as much as you want. And you can have a disagreement over money. You can have a disagreement over custody. You can have a disagreement over a lot of things. But the attitude that you have in that disagreement, the way you treat each other in that disagreement, the pain that you cause each other in that disagreement is going to determine today which wedding you have 15 years from now.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's hard. You could tell somebody that, but that is so hard at that moment.
It is. It is. And what I tell them is, it's okay. It's okay for you to be hurt, and for you to want that, and for you to be angry. That's okay. Rely on me to keep you in check.
Yeah.
Listen to me and understand that I have your long-term interests at heart. And if you'll do that and just listen to me, I can pull you off that edge.
Well, I have definitely heard that from your clients. You've gotten a lot of comments here, but we don't have any questions yet. If you guys do have any questions, we are going to end a little bit early at 8:20. Justin has court this morning, so if you do have a question, let us know. I want to talk about briefly about some high-profile divorces, and it seems like this has really been the year for it. I mean, I look at Bill and Melinda Gates, the Amazon couple, and Kim and Kanye, all these really big power couples getting divorced. So tell me a little bit about what that divorce might look like financially if they were in Georgia.
Sure. So each of them are very interesting for different reasons. You talk about the Bezos or the Gates divorces. Those are practically a business dissolution.
Yes.
And it will be as much of a business transaction as a divorce. In the case of Bill and Melinda, the children are grown. There's no custody aspect of it. It'll be a significant unwinding. And in their case, it's almost all property that they have built during their marriage. So if we were in Georgia, that's all considered marital property. It would all be divided. In most cases, it's divided equally. In Georgia, we call it equitably. Equitably doesn't mean 50-50, but quite often that's the barometer of where we are. And you'll see that process unwind. I anticipate in their case, given the amount of assets, it'll be much like the Amazon Bezos divorce, where it's worked through with lawyers and negotiators, and it's handled, and the business is not dissolved, but the marriage dissolves. and the assets transfer somewhat seamlessly.
So let me ask you a crazy question. If you have all that money that Bill and Melinda Gates have, and all the rest of us would say nobody needs, but if he comes out and he has a lot higher salary than she does, might he ever have to pay like alimony? Is that
So
crazy?
the alimony side of it is probably not there just because it links them together, and they wouldn't want that. The other thing to consider, when she receives her half of however many billion, the investment income on that is gonna generate annual income in the millions. And so neither of them, will worry. The standard we have in Georgia for support cases is, can you maintain the standard of living enjoyed during the marriage? And I would wager that even on half of their fortune, they can continue both to live pretty comfortably.
I didn't know that. I didn't know if it was just based on income and it went way up,
It's
or
based-
if it, yeah, okay, that's a good explanation.
It's based on
for it.
several factors. Alimony is based on several factors. It's probably the most frustrating part of what we do. When it comes to child support, we have a worksheet where we can put in the incomes, we can put in objective data, and we get a number. But when it comes to alimony, we have these fuzzy factors like the contributions to the marriage, the time that a spouse may have spent out of the workforce, for example, to be a stay-at-home parent, the contributions that each made to the other's education background. We look at the standard of living enjoyed during the marriage. So we have all these fuzzy factors, and the reality is those factors can range judge to judge and county to county. So
Really? The
ca-
factors themselves?
well, the application of them, so that
Yeah.
a case that I try that might be an alimony case in a metro county may not be an alimony case in a more rural or suburban county. It varies judge to judge, and that's one thing when you hire a lawyer. That's one of the things that you really want to look for is that lawyer familiar with the judges in the county where your case is going to be pending, because the judge matters, and how they apply things matter, and our familiarity with how those judges come out on those types of things matter. On your other one, so this one's more interesting. Kim and Kanye are a little more
Yeah.
interesting because each of them bring to the table a substantial premarital asset base. And so when we do a divorce case, and theirs is just scaled way up, the first thing you have to do is figure out what the premarital assets of the parties are. And as long as they haven't been commingled, if they've gotten mixed up with marital assets, it makes life a little more difficult. But if they're intact, if they are still in the manner in which they were, separately titled premarital property, then you separate those out and they're not part of the asset division in the divorce. So in the case of these two, you've got a substantial premarital fortune on both parts. Then you have to look at what was accumulated during the marriage, which for these two individuals, Kim and Kanye, is substantial. They've both taken their fortunes and built them even greater. But in Georgia, we have a separate standard that says that personal goodwill, so on a corporation, you have two aspects of a corporation, corporate goodwill and personal goodwill. Corporate goodwill is Amazon, Microsoft. At the end of the day, it matters who Jeff Bezos is, but you're going to buy from Amazon whether Jeff Bezos owns it or not.
Right.
Kim and Kanye have in their businesses a high amount of personal goodwill. People buy Kim Kardashian's clothing products because it's Kim Kardashian. And if she were to sell the company, there's an argument to be made that people may not be as loyal. And so you have to sort out the personal goodwill, because in Georgia that's not divisible as a marital asset. It's unique to a person.
Interesting.
Yeah, so their case creates the potential for a lot of unscrambling, and we haven't even started on their children. So then we have to figure out a custody scenario. And when you have two people in that world, you have to figure out a custody scenario that doesn't just work for them as parents, but works for them as business people. So the typical, hey, dad's going to pick up the kids every other Thursday and bring them back on Sunday night scenario that we crank out a lot, in a typical custody case here. And even now we're seeing a lot of split, joint parenting, rotating weeks, week on, week off parenting schedules. They can't do that. Their commitments, their responsibilities to the public, their responsibilities to their corporations aren't going to allow that. So they're going to have to get incredibly creative in crafting. And you've seen when celebrity custody battles blow up, they blow up in a big way.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see because they are both so hyper cognizant of their brand. It'll be interesting to see how well they can keep the emotion at check, any anger, any degree of.
Because it could very well hurt their personal brand, and especially if people perception is that they're fighting tooth and nail and the children are suffering for it.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not going to help.
Both of them are so hyper focused on their brand and their personal reputation and personal brand that it will be fascinating to see, are they able to navigate the process? Can they work something out in the business side? Can they work the money out? Can they work the custody out without having a big hullabaloo about it? And she in a prior instance, she struggled with this with her last marriage, which was a very short marriage to the basketball player. That started to become public, and they fought, and there was some issues with that associated with an annulment and some other issues, and it started to cause some harm to that public persona.
Yeah.
And so it'll be very interesting to watch how they navigate those waters and maintain that. But theirs will be very different than Bill and Melinda.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and catching us up, and we'll wait to see what happens with Kim and Kanye.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.